Let's go get an engine. Alright guys, made it back. About a 12-hour round trip all in. Got back about 7 o'clock last night and then had a few hours sitting in the shop designing things in my mind. So a bit of a late start today, but behind me we got excitement. 165 horse of it on the bench. So today let's pull the cowls off and we'll get a look at what we got there, and we'll get a look at what we got here. I'll tell you what it is, and see if we can make that thing pull the airplane around. Let's get at her. Okay, quickly let's talk about this motor. This is out of 2014 Skidoo Summit X800. It's Rotax 800 E-Tech. It's fuel injected. It makes 165 horse, so they claim. It's probably more like 150. is going to be my round number that I'm going to use, I think. That's my guess anyway. That's what I'm going to tell people. Actually, you know what? Sounds better if it's 165. We'll go with 165. So a couple things I got to do. I got to, the way the engine mount for the 532 works is it bolts right onto these 4 little feet on the bottom of this case. However, the case in the 532 is just 2 halves. It splits right here halfway. And this case is 3 pieces, which means that this is basically just like a lid almost for the crankcase, and that's what I'd be bolting into. So that's not going to work because I'll just rip that off, and only 2 of them are threaded. So I got to build a frame that goes around the motor and connects to the original motor mount bolts on all 4, and then I'll have a plate here that bolts to that frame, and the gearbox will bolt to that plate, and then that plate will bolt to the subframe, we'll call it. And then that subframe will bolt to the motor mounts, and that's where the shock absorbers or the cushions will be, the rubber cushions. I will put rubber between here and this frame that I make. Okay, air cleaners, that's easy. I ordered those. That should be no problem. Shouldn't have to do anything with that. I may want to tune it. I might find that runs it a little bit lean. And then at the top end, it might drop the timing, drop the ignition, I should say. Retard the ignition, and I'll lose a few hundred RPM. Anyway, this could affect the overall performance of the engine, just changing air cleaners, because it used to have an air box, or it's tuned for the air box, so I may have to tune it after. Well, I will have to tune it. I shouldn't even say I may. I know I will have to tune it, which means that I'll want to put a Dynajet fuel controller on here, so I'll do that. As for a gearbox, I'm thinking I can either make a gearbox, or once I get the gearbox off the airplane, I'll know if the taper on this crank is the same as the taper on that crank. And if that is the case, then I will be able to bolt a C box, a C drive on here, or an E, but I think I would rather have the starter at the mag end. And I also think that the ring gear off the 532 will bolt right onto that mag end, and then I'll just make a bracket for the starter, and then the starter sits at that end instead of way out here at the front, because I don't think there's even going to be enough room for, I don't know, maybe. That E-box probably sticks out to here. There probably would be room, but we'll see. I haven't decided on a gearbox yet, but I can make the bracket in the meantime, get that gearbox apart. I would just use that gearbox. If the taper is the same and stuff, then technically that gearbox could bolt on, even if this bolt pattern didn't line up. I could bolt it to the plate, and then bolt the plate to the bracket, which is how I'm going to do it. But I don't think the gears in there, well, they're the wrong ratio. Number one, I need to slow it down even more, because this rev's higher than that. And number two, I think those gears aren't going to like the extra 100 horsepower hitting them. So probably like something a little bit more robust. Because I would hate to have my prop fly away on me, or stop pulling on takeoff or something. I'd like to try and avoid that. Gears mushing. So anyway, tomorrow morning I will go and get some more material to build this and the plate. And the plate I'll just leave blank. so that it'll bolt onto the frame and everything, but no bolt pattern or anything for the gearbox to bolt to, because I don't know what gearbox yet. So I'll just leave that blank until I make a decision on gearbox. So tomorrow's agenda is I have to drive 4 hours of driving to go get some material. I have to pull the gearbox off the airplane, and then I have to make some phone calls and see about either option A, bolting a gearbox on, buying a complete gearbox and bolting it on, or option B, having those same gears but at a 3-to-1 ratio, or like 3.5 or something, 3-ish to 1, somewhere between 3 and 4 to 1, remade out of a more robust material, so beefier gears. So I don't know, but stay tuned. It took a little bit longer than expected to post this video because, well, really, I just had to come up with a plan. When I picked this up, it was the first time I ever saw one of these, so I didn't know. It's hard to tell in pictures how big the taper on the crank is, what the spread on these are, you know, just so many things. It's much easier to design this when I can sit here and look at it and then walk over the airplane and look at the airplane. And so anyway, it's gonna work. If you guys can think of any reason that this isn't gonna work, like why, maybe a reason that this 800 E-Tech is gonna not like being upside down, then please do let me know. I can't think of any reason. It doesn't have a rotary valve, it's fuel injected. The crank is oiled. So I just don't think there's going to be any issues with it. But if you can think of anything, please do let me know. Like I say, if this, I'd really like to figure out the logistics for this, because this isn't actually the engine that I wanted to put in there. I wanted to put an 850 turbo in there, but for the price of the 850 turbo, I could just go and buy a bolt-in aircraft engine. It wouldn't make as much power, but I could just about do an Apex conversion, Yamaha Apex conversion, for what it would cost me to figure out how to put the 850 in, gearbox wise and all that stuff. So this is a good learning curve, and if I can do it with this and make it repeatable, then I would be a lot more confident going and spending the 10 grand on a 850 turbo to put in there. So hopefully, well, I shouldn't even say hopefully, but in a few months, this thing right here should be pulling the airplane around with a new panel too. So stick around. Anybody who subscribed, thank you, appreciate that. If you're not subscribed and this is kind of stuff that interests you, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Doesn't cost anything, sure helps with the algorithm. And obviously the more of you that subscribe, the more cooler stuff we can do with the airplane. I got some adventures planned for this summer. So I'm fairly close to Alaska and the Yukon, and the Yukon just happens to be home sweet home for me. So I am planning on spending a month straight in the airplane, just flying around up to the Yukon and see a bunch of people and hit some the old strips from my childhood that I never ever saw an airplane on. So I'd like to go on tour the Yukon, do some exploring, and maybe we'll get over to Alaska. And yeah, so hit that like, subscribe, share, and your comments and feedback make a huge difference with the algorithm too. And hopefully some of you guys have some good ideas and some feedback, and anybody whose ideas I use and incorporate, I will absolutely give you credit. And I'm sure there's better ideas than mine out there, so throw them at me. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next week with a week's worth of progress. Peace.